Hey, welcome to the Digital Remodeler Podcast. I'm so glad you've chosen to join us today. And with me is Kat Oldershaw from Kat and Co. And Kat, so glad you're with us today. And thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Carl. It's great to speak with you again, and be here today on this lovely July afternoon. I just looked up and checked that it was July before I said that. So,
Absolutely. So
Yep.
tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about your company, and then we'll kind of get into our topic today. Hope for those creative types out there who find themselves buried in their business.
Mm. Great. Okay, so my name is Kat. I am the owner and operator of Kat and Co. And I help creative entrepreneurs make it easy for them to run their businesses. I said that in a very jumbled way. I help creative business owners run their businesses. There we go. Um, I got my start in the interior design build industry. Um, and started as an executive assistant, very quickly became that operations person, that ops director, studio director, within a lot of different adjacent firms in the industry. So, interior design, design build, like I mentioned, custom furniture, fine art, commercial design, etc., always through that operations lens. And when I started my company, I wanted to bring that structure and that support of what I enjoy doing, which is supporting creative entrepreneurs from behind the scenes, helping them, helping their businesses feel as they envisioned they would when they started it from the creative passion. I took that and I'm applying it through my current company, through multiple different ways, as easy as, just one-on-one consulting, owner to owner, all the way to I'm an integrated part of your team and helping your team kind of get through those operational hurdles that we all experience. Um, yeah.
Fantastic. Well, let's kind of, dive into that and break that apart because, one of the things we find obviously in the remodeling space and with some of our clients is they are phenomenal craftsmen. And so maybe they got their start because they're a great carpenter. They do exceptional work. People love, the work they do and they enjoy doing that. And because they're so good at it, one day they wake up and by golly, they've got a business. And it's not just them anymore. It's not just them and a helper. Now maybe they've got multiple crews, and the business is starting to outpace them and maybe even their capacity a little bit. And because of that, things are starting to break, frustrations are starting to increase. And so, I'm sure as you've experienced that, what are some of the common pain points that you start to see with clients as that starts to happen? Their creativity catches on, their
Mhm.
services are in demand, more and more people want their work, and now there's a business, a
Mhm.
real business, not just project work here and there, but really they're starting to see that momentum. What are some of those breaking points you start to see, those pain points that you normally experience with the clients you're working with?
Mhm. Three things come to mind. First and foremost, there can develop a level of resentment towards your business, especially if your zone of genius purely lives in creative output. Like you said, someone who is maybe a custom furniture master or a mill worker or, loves sculpture or whatever it might be, someone who started the business from that zone of genius and that passion for their craft and is now burdened with everything else that comes with a business, right? All of the hidden tasks and to-dos that just all of a sudden they show up and then it's like I literally can't do anything else but these tasks. Second, is I would say a fear to take on more work. because they might be afraid that the current system or modus operandi of their business won't support more work. And I think the last one is also perhaps a fear that if their team is growing, which is amazing when you're at that point, there might be a fear that new people on the team might not be able to take what was built and run with it. So, a lack of transparency and communication, a lack of definition in roles and responsibilities and who's in charge of what. All of those things together can cause confusion, resentment, uncertainty, um, and really like a rat's tail of who knows what's going on. And, Sally said she was going to handle this task and she didn't, and I don't know why, and blah, blah, blah. And it can get out of hand very quickly. And so, really, one thing that I feel that I bring to the table is outside perspective and being able to see their business from a bird's eye view while also understanding the inner workings of the day to day.
That's good. I really like what you said about the resentment side. I think it's
Hmm.
easy for that business owner to actually feel trapped.
Yeah.
Like, my gosh, what did I create
What
here?
did I build? Yeah, this monster.
Exactly. So let's kind of break down those different things you just brought up, though, because each of those is kind of unique.
Mm,
So when you talk about those pain points, first of all, there's kind of this, rat's nest of things.
mm,
So what's really the solution to that? You've got typical business. You've got accounting and bookkeeping and marketing and invoicing and estimates and all of these things. All have to be taken care of.
hmm.
Scheduling and all of those things. Um, what's kind of the process of bringing some order to that chaos? How do you unwind that? How do you put it in a
Um,
place where it's manageable?
well, several things, but what first is coming up to me and what I would want to know from the business owner is where do they want to live in their business? What do they want to be responsible for? I mean, yes, a lot of the times we can assume they want to still be involved in the creative process, but that's not necessarily the case. I think you can relate that we all change so much as business owners and entrepreneurs. And, 6 months ago, I might have been enjoying something completely different than I am now in my business. So I think it's important to really do a deep dive into all of the tasks within your business and kind of look at them holistically and decide, what part of this do I really enjoy and what part of this do I want to live in the majority of the time. Then the rest of those tasks can be assigned to whoever's on your team or, between me and the owner. A lot of the times I'm working in a very small team. It might be just the owner and I, or it might be a team under five. So it might be kind of defining who's championing your team and your mission and what are they, what's their zone of genius, what's their expertise. From there, it can get, pretty detailed in terms of defining those roles and responsibilities, defining standard operating procedures of the business. But I want to be cognizant as well of a small creative business doesn't necessarily need to have every single thing written out. A lot of the times, just a general understanding and having that deciding process transparent to the team is enough to get everyone on the same page.
Good. So in that, seems like communication has to be a big part of that. So how do you establish a clear flow of communication, and how do you, if somebody's been a solo operator
Mm-hmm.
and oftentimes probably in their head a lot,
Yep.
and not very good at communicating, how do you bring that out, and how do you make sure that that communication is healthy?
That's a great question. It can be helpful to have one point of communication for the owner, like you said, especially if they're used to living in their head. Maybe assuming that other people know what they're thinking.
Yeah,
Yeah, happens a lot. Um, and I would also posit, how do they like to communicate? Everyone receives and communicates in a different way. Some might like to text everything, which is not my favorite, but some like to. Some like to talk on the phone, some prefer face to face, some are more analog with how they communicate, literally writing things down, or, comfortable with digital tools. So, going back to that as well, I would really lean on what comes naturally and what comes naturally and what would be an easy lift for their team to adopt as the primary way to communicate. Sometimes when there's multiple channels like email, text, phone, maybe they have a Slack channel or some other messaging platform, and everyone's using every single type. That's another way that you can lose track of that clear communication, because I think they said this, but now I have to spend 10 minutes looking and finding where they where they said that. So, simplifying and defining what the best route is a good place to start.
good. So let me ask you this. This is kind of a question. So sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So if
Yeah.
I've been a solo creative type person, never really worked with a team, I don't really know what my communication style is going to be. Don't
Mm-hmm.
really know what the team's communication style is going to be. How can they find that out? What's a good diagnostic to figure out what's the best mode for us as a team to communicate?
Mm-hmm. Well, I might suggest, it depends on so many factors. I guess it depends on how big their team already is. If it's a small team, I would just suggest email scheduled meetings, please, and phone calls for urgent things. If it's already a larger team that has habits already in place, it might be a good way to have an open dialogue about it and schedule a meeting and express, here's some difficulties we're having with communication. Here's the effects of those difficulties that we've been seeing. And really talking through what makes the most sense for their unique process. One thing that's coming to mind, if it's a fabrication shop or a design build, um, there might be people in the office that are online all the time, and they have higher accessibility to digital tools than fabricators in the back would. So there's also cadence of work styles that come into play, and establishing what makes the most sense for everyone, and what is an accessible tool for everybody.
That's good. Now, another thing I kind of want to delve into is, as this person moves from, going solo to starting to build out their business, their team, one of the things they're going to have to create is culture.
Uh-huh.
And so part of that is bringing organization and order into the business. But what are some components of that that go into building the right culture as well, so that the culture isn't disorganized and chaotic? What are some of your suggestions there to make sure that organization and order and process become part of the normal culture of that organization and team?
hmm I think it comes hand in hand with defining the business's values. As solo entrepreneurs, it can be challenging to separate the two of what your personal values are and what your business values are, excuse me. That can get into a larger conversation about brand and all of that jazz, but essentially there are ways to discern what are the building blocks of our business values that everything else really falls back on. And that also can be helpful when determining communication timelines. For example, if your business values uh, res- mm, not reactivity, I'm trying to think of a proactivity, I would say. For client communication, you might have a standard that the office team responds to them within 12 to 24 hours. On the flip side of that, if you value authentic communication and creative expression and, whatever it might be, you might have a longer response time. That's an expected window for your team. So anyway, you can see it kind of all builds off of these building blocks that are different for every business and every entrepreneur.
Very good. And then, part of, for you, and this is, you're coming into this, you know, organization, you've got a creative that's leading it. And so you have to respect that creative genius. You have to respect that, the way they're going to process and do things really flows out of that. And yet you have to bring process and systems and all these things into play. How do you marry those things together? That creative side and then this orderly, analytical, linear, process driven business side. How do you do that? How do you make that marriage work?
I feel like you're describing me as a person because I am both an analytical, organized person and I'm a creative business owner. So, uh, for me, it's about finding the flexibility within those systems. I'm never gonna suggest a one size fits all type. This is the one, system or program that works for everybody. No, that's silly. It's all about establishing what parameters allow your business to move forward in a clear, organized way, but still give you, as the business owner, the flexibility and ability to bake in your necessary creative development time. It's an evolving process. I don't think that you're able to put something in place and then it stays like that forever. Every day our businesses are changing. We might have different personnel, we might have different clients. You know, I as a business owner myself, I'm evolving every day. There's so many different factors that come into play and your systems should evolve with your growth. So it's really a matter of opening the lines of communication, allowing for that flexibility, and while respecting the boundaries that we've put in place.
Mm,
Yeah.
good,
Yeah.
good. So, when you've implemented this with clients, um, what separates the clients that are successful, making that marriage work from those that really struggle? So what do you see makes the difference between those that really do succeed well and those that struggle uh, making all of this work together?
Self-reflection.
Hmm. Dive into that.
hmm This is personal stuff. I mean, there's a level of vulnerability that is required to ask for help. And especially when it's about your own business that you've built and it's your baby and it's, in its toddling years and walking off into the world. And, it's hard to say, hey, I don't know if I built this completely right, or I don't know if this thing I thought was going to work a year ago is working, or this program that I thought would save me is working. Um, it's difficult to admit that and accept help and express vulnerability. That's something that I think is almost a barrier to entry for a lot of people. They want fast solutions. And the fact of the matter is, when it comes to your business, there's not a shiny one size fits all tool that's going to fix it. Even the programs that are the highest caliber of programs require input and dedication to making that program work. So a lot of what I come in and help is establishing what behaviors need to change, whether it's as simple as communication behaviors or team personnel behaviors, um, and helping them implement those. And I think it requires a certain level of hubris or humility to realize it might have something to do with how I'm running my business.
Mm, very much so. Yeah, I think this self-awareness is critical. Not just if you're creative, really for any business owner.
Anybody. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not just for and I will say creatives, I think, are better at it.
Mhm.
We live in our emotions more than others. And so a lot of the times it's not an issue for me. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So as you've worked with, clients and even looking at yourself, what systems and processes do you feel like are the most beneficial? So if you were to kind of look at normally these things make the biggest difference.
Hmm.
And if I were a listener today and I was thinking, I've got a lot of chaos. Where would I start? What tend to be the biggest difference makers that a creative business owner could start to look at?
Hmm. First, I would say start with what are the key repeatable things in your business that happen across projects, even if every project is different, you know? Um, Even with that in mind, what are the key things that happen through every project? That can be onboarding, that can be quoting, that can be, fabrication time, that can be install, whatever repeatable things that happen in every project that can help inform the type of system or program you might need. I'm of the belief that as little programs as possible, minimum viable solution. So sometimes it can be a mix of maybe a written process of this is how our typical projects run. And at this point, we start tracking information in a task management software or an inventory software or a project management software. And from this part of the process onward, it's managed by this team and they're doing that over here. So not every part of the process needs to be in one program. I would suggest defining first which parts of your process need a program and which can just benefit from boundaries or, a written process.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's good. And let me ask you this, are should you be looking at maybe what your biggest pain points are? And the reason I'm
Mm.
asking that, I kind of think about my journey. Um, I like to look at efficiency, so I tend to be very direct and to the point, and that's if you were to study my psychological makeup, there's probably some things that make it happen. So one of my pain points was I hated going back and forth on appointments. When do you want to
Mm.
meet? I want to meet Tuesday. Well, would you want to meet at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock? Well, how about 4 o'clock? Okay. Do you want to meet at the coffee shop or do you want to meet at Panera? And so it took 8 conversations to nail down an appointment.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of my favorite tools ended up becoming Calendly. Hey, just
Yep. Love
here's
it.
my link. You go schedule, and it made my life easier. And so it was just eliminating the pain point
Mm-hmm.
was such a relief. And
Yeah.
so for me, that was a great starting point in systematizing some of my operation. And there are some things that I don't necessarily want a system for
Yeah.
because I just That's who
It'll
I
just
am.
overcomplicate it. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, one of the questions that I like to fall back on is what parts of your business always feel clunky or harder than they should? Like you're saying, the scheduling, or what parts of your process or your company are you thinking this should be easier? Like, why is this taking so long? That's a good way to maybe highlight areas that can be streamlined or areas that you want nothing to do with, that you can offboard to someone else on your team. Yeah, another question that is helpful when it comes to preventing things from happening that didn't work so well in the past is what's something that's happened on a project or an install or with a client that you never want to happen again. And that's a good indicator of maybe some boundaries we can put in place or add into our contract agreements or service agreements, things like that, that we can track and notice and prevent from happening in the future.
But I think that's good. Yeah. Where do you not want to repeat that again?
Yes.
So that's great stuff. So Kat, give us if you would just a couple of just success stories you've seen where you were able to just help somebody go from I'm going to pull my hair out and maybe they were just losing their love for what they do, and because you were able to bring some order to the process, they were able to really find their passion again and keep moving forward. Can you give us just a couple of quick examples?
Sure. Yes, I was working with an interior designer recently that um, very small team, just her and an assistant, was experiencing a lot of what we've been talking about before of extreme burnout, overwhelm, resentment towards her business. A lot of that was coming from the operational tasks. That's something that I excel in and I enjoy. We were actually able to establish a cadence where we have a shared language at this point. She sends me things in our shared language of, here, this thing, can you look into this, please? Thank you. And I will handle the operational tasks, keep the back end, procurement, finance, communicate with the bookkeeper, handle all of the time billing, which is a big time suck. Not everyone enjoys doing time billing. I kind of think it's a little, I zen out a little bit when I'm entering time billing. So that's the first example that comes to mind where it's almost like a division of labor where we were able to figure out a cadence. She focuses on her creative delivery and working with clients. I focus on operation and, project management and moving the needle forward there. And then the assistant handles the ancillary tasks of maybe personal tasks or marketing tasks or, kind of the little things that fall in
Oh,
between the categories. Yeah.
excellent. Excellent. So, Kat, if somebody wants to learn more about you, wants to connect with you, where can they do that at?
Best place is the website, which is catandco.org. And it's all spelled out Katand. Uh, I'm not very good at spelling in lifetime. Co.org. Hope that's right.
That's
Um,
correct. I'm looking
oh,
at it. Yep.
oh, good. Phew. And on there, you'll read a little bit more about me and how I started this company and who I like to work with. But I've also I've been really cognizant of making this help accessible. Um, like I said earlier, businesses evolve and change over time. I understand not everyone needs a fractional COO all the time. So I've divvied up what I offer into several buckets. So first off being a new business start or new business setup, excuse me. So someone who's has an idea for a creative endeavor, maybe they've just started it and they need someone really in the early stages to help set them up for success. Then there's one-on-one owner to owner sessions where it's, hey, I kind of need to bounce something off of you, talk through together issues in live time. And, that's it. One session here and there is all they need. The highest tier offering is more so of a fractional engagement, like I mentioned, an embedded part of your team with an established hours per month. And slightly below that is hourly assistance, really good for maybe some project support or onboarding support or audits on operational process.
Fantastic. Well, Kat, thank you for joining me today, and have enjoyed our conversation. And want to encourage our audience reach out to Kat, and she can bring some order to your chaos and keep you on your creative track. Be sure and reach out to her. And to our audience, thank you for tuning in to the Digital Remodeler today. It's been great having you, and we look forward to having you listen in and joining us on our next episode.
Thanks so much, Carl.
You're welcome.